yeah. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in NFL Week 13 already, Thanksgiving week. And we got so much going on right now over at fantasyalarm.com. We thank everybody for tuning in. As always, if you're watching us on the YouTubes, then give us that like, give it that this little subscribe. We'd appreciate all of that. Nice free way to say what's up and show your appreciation for what we do. I'm Howard Bender, obviously. Andrew Cooper here by my side, and it's a waiver wire kind of day here in Fantasy Alarm. What is up, Coop?
What's happening, man? Yeah, it is a big day today, but I think we need to start with today with the most egregious thing going on in the fantasy community. This draft. This draft. For those that may have missed it, there was a Thanksgiving food draft that was done. You know, Howard and I, we kind of talked a little bit about rankings behind the scene before it went down. And I got to say, Howard crushed it, right? Some of you may be thinking Jeff Ratcliffe crushed it here, but I have to ask, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line on what's Thanksgiving food or not? Chat, I need to know because Jeff Ratcliffe, you know, he went, I love mashed potatoes. I love the stuffing. Pecan pie is my favorite. Brisket, is that a Thanksgiving food? It does. Should that be allowed? The fourth round brisket.
And you know, listen, I get it. Main dishes, you gotta try and figure it out and be creative. But yeah, I mean, you know, you could have gone with a turducken for crying out loud over there. Like that was the thing. Well, I'll tell you what I find absolutely crazy about this. And I see that Fatty McFats. I see that ew in there on the cranberry sauce. What's wrong with you, dude?
Cran is nice. The cran is
Who
nice.
hurt you, Fatty?
Are you a chunky or smooth cran guy? Or it doesn't matter.
Dude, you got to be a chunky, like natural. You know, I mean, listen, I'm all for being lazy, getting that, you know, canned cranberry sauce and slicing it up so it looks like giant, like, you know, floppy beets. Yeah. I guess is the best way to describe what exactly that actually looks like. But no, man, you got to get like the real cranberry sauce. The thing that throws me about this, and listen, I get it. I definitely get it. You want, everybody loves mashed potatoes and stuffing. I love mashed potatoes and stuffing. But if you don't recognize that turkey, the main dish, is the one of all Thanksgiving food. What do you see when everybody's celebrating Thanksgiving? Even the little cartoon turkeys, regular turkeys, you stupid kids with your stupid second grade art, tracing a handprint and making it into a turkey. How is turkey not the one? Forget the array of sides. I could come up with 1,000 different sides.
I think so. Please. Yeah. The thing is, my favorite, you got to separate. And again, you got to do this in fantasy football too, right? Like you have to separate your favorite player. Like my favorite pick was Chris Godwin from the player that you should be taking at one. Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's the turkey. Right. Exactly. You got to make sacrifice somewhere. I think looking at this board, I think because there kind of aren't really enough like big meats, you know, like turkey, the ham, pork chops is kind of pushing it too. But like, I feel like to make things fair, Jeff Ratcliffe should have been forced to take brisket in like the second round. I think where it becomes cheating is kind of sneaking that in. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have steak. Give me steak in the last round. That's cheating. It's Taysom Hill here. Also, cinnamon rolls pretty egregious as well. But the cinnamon rolls is actually maybe worse because there's so many real Thanksgiving desserts available. How are you not going to pick from the 100 that I would actually qualify? I would put 100. There are 100 desserts more associated with Thanksgiving than cinnamon rolls.
Joe Dolan's rationale is that the New York Times lists cinnamon rolls as one of their
yes, I clicked the article. Desserts. No, not top 10, Howard. I clicked the article. There were 191 desserts in there, and it was on page 7. I clicked that article. I was like, first of all, this is a fallacy. This is an appeal to authority, right? He's basically saying, oh, you know, they said 191 desserts listed, and it's not even close to being one of the top ones. So that's cheating. I'm with you, Lou Brew, though. Once turkey's off the table for me, I'm going stuffing. If you had gone turkey at 1, I would have gone stuffing at 2. I would have. Yeah. Stuffing's what's up. But anyway,
had Joe gone turkey at 1 like a normal person, then I would have gone stuffing at 2. hands down, no question about it. I would have been like, you know what? I'll find a different meat that I won't go with ham here at the second one, and I'll take stuffing. Like that, stuffing is easily the second choice. Ratcliffe even went mashed potatoes ahead of stuffing, which I found
I think
kind of
that's
bonkers.
but I think the fact he got them both is great. And what he needed was the egregious and terrible reach by Nick Whalen for green bean casserole. Green bean casserole. Anything that says casserole, you can get off waivers. 100%. 100%, dude. So anyway, we just had to hit on that quick. It's very, very important. Yeah, and Howard, you got all the staples, dude. Your draft is like the ones that are winning right now in leagues, because like the one I have in the Beantown Brawl, where everyone was taking hipster picks and I just took all the good players. That's your draft right there. You went like, Saquon, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, just kind of the blue collar real Thanksgiving foods. I think you won that one. But I mean, the thing is, if brisket stands, it's hard for me not to go with Ratcliffe, because I love all those selections. Anyway,
I do too, but it's give and take for what you have to do, and you can't sit there and say that, like, as great as mashed potatoes and stuffing are, all right, those are his two best picks. All right, if you take my two best picks, turkey and I don't know, how about pumpkin pie? Like, how is that not the one of dessert? I took it first over there and just like locked it down there. I mean, come on. I don't know. I think I've got 4 first rounders here. First rounders.
You crushed it. But pecan pie, I mean, pumpkin pie is a classic. And if we're talking Thanksgiving, because you get the association bump, right, of pumpkin pie. But I love pecan pie. I had to battle for pecan pie to stay on the table at my house this year. It was on the chopping block. Unbelievable.
As it should be. It's terrible.
No, what? Dude, a little ice, you heat it up, a little ice cream, bro.
No.
Next level. Turn that thing into pecan soup. That's what's up.
You turn that thing into pecan soup. Should we talk some football? Like, there's crazy stuff going on right now. Fine. I mean, I'm literally sitting here because it's 3 games on Thursday, right? And then it's 1 game on Friday, Raiders Chiefs. That's a Black Friday game. Then you got the rest of it on Sunday. But now to lock in 4 games, right, 2 days ahead of the Sunday slate. I mean, that's going to be that you're going to end up making a lot of crazy lineup choices here, because we're getting the injury report. It's like kind of rolling out, but like I'll just throw one out at you here, and we'll get to our normal format. But are you playing David Montgomery over like some of the starting running backs who are playing on Sunday? There are great running backs playing on Sunday. David Montgomery is amazing, but it's a short week. He's got a shoulder injury, and they've got Jahmyr Gibbs. So, like, that's the kind of thing. Like, Montgomery is like an auto start for me every single week. Now you kind of have to be concerned.
Exactly. And then the problem is that with Monty, it just so happens to be the worst injury for what he does, right? Because if you have that injury, if you're Jahmyr Gibbs and you have that injury, it's almost like, who cares? We'll just throw him passes, and he'll do what he does. Hopefully he gets out of bounds. If you're the bruiser up the middle back and you get one of those AC joints, that's no good, man, especially when they have another guy, and they're steamrolling, and it's not exactly it's the Bears. It's not necessarily a must win. I mean, obviously you want to win, but they're 10-point favorites, right? So it is concerning. Not to mention the Raiders game, if you really think about it, that is the one team that really could have used a Sunday game, because they've got 2 running backs that are both banged up. And now they have to figure it out within a couple days, right? They're starting running backs, where they have to go with Amir Abdullah again. I mean, it is one of those. It is a crazy slate. It's a crazy slate. And the beautiful thing is no bye weeks. Next week, we have a ton of bye weeks. I made sure in the articles and with this show, we're going to talk a little bit about week 14, because we have 6 bye weeks. So a lot of the moves you make this week, because there are no crazy major moves outside of maybe trying to really bite on Gus Edwards. Like, there are no like huge ads. So when you are making these decisions, maybe you should keep an eye on week 14 and say, hey, wait a second. I know I might not use this guy this week, but next week I might have to use this guy. So keep that in mind. Get your questions in the chat. I know Ethan's already got one in there. Definitely load up whatever you guys got today. We'll hit it.
Yeah, we'll definitely hit it for sure. Get into it. But to your point right there, Coop, my article in the New York Post, which is going to come out tonight, maybe tonight, or maybe it's out already online. I haven't even looked yet to check, but it talks about that exact thing with no teams on a bye week this week, right? The question is, what are you doing with your roster? Like, are you like, all right. So for example, people who sit there on the waiver wire and they just kind of churn over players. Oh, I'll see what this guy does. Oh, I'll see what that guy does. Oh, this guy's not going to make my starting lineup this week. So let me see if I can find something else. And people end up dropping guys who they really shouldn't drop. So I actually highlighted 2 wide receivers who I think are, maybe still, definitely still available in like 10 teamers, right? But B, guys who could get the boot this week if somebody wants to, like, say, grab a backup running back or something like that. And that's Nick Westbrook-Akine, right? I mean, I don't know, 6 touchdowns in 7 games, and yet people are like, who's that guy? I mean, he doesn't get a lot of targets and he doesn't get a lot of yards, but he has found the end zone there. And as a wide receiver 3, it's not bad, right? You probably, with no bye weeks, have 3 better receivers than Nick Westbrook-Akine, right? Who definitely see more targets, who catch more passes. That's fine. But would you drop Nick Westbrook-Akine to maybe say, I don't know, try and pick up like a stash like a Trey Benson or a Blake Corum? Or do you look to the fact that Nick Westbrook-Akine is going to play Jacksonville in week 14 and do that? Like, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you're not using him this week, but in week 14, the Saints are playing the Giants. Right. So, I mean, like, they're going to have the value. So you do have to be very careful when you are making your waiver claims this week, because you already need to be looking ahead, as Coop said, to another big, huge bye week.
And I moved Nick Westbrook-Akine ahead of a lot of the guys we've been looking at, and the guys that have been in a similar role and serviceable. Because the thing about Nick Westbrook-Akine is we usually don't chase touchdowns. If it was just touchdowns, we wouldn't chase it. But this guy, the last 6 games or so, has played 92, 97, literally 100% of the snaps in week 10, 85% and 90% of the snaps. He's actually played more snaps in all those games than Calvin Ridley besides week 11. So he's playing the snaps. He's getting the targets. I mean, he's not super efficient, but he's getting targets and he's scoring touchdowns. And the big difference maker between guys like Kayshon Boutte and Noah Brown, especially those 2, because they're on bye week in week 14. If you don't use them this week, you're not using them next week. And then what are you going to do? Can you really? The thing is, if Kayshon Boutte doesn't go off this week against the Colts, can you really have him sit through the bye and then throw him right into your lineup for fantasy playoffs? Like, right. He's got to do something this week or I'm done with him, right? So it's that time of the season. But Nick Westbrook-Akine, it's not just week 14. That schedule, they get the Jaguars, and then they get the Bengals, and then they get the Colts, and then they get the Jaguars again. So if he goes off against the Jaguars in week 14, guess what? He gets the Jaguars in championship week 2, right? There's a couple spots out there like that. Like, look and see who's playing the Panthers coming up in week, who's playing the Panthers in week 14 as well. Because I think the same exact thing is happening. Or no, the Tampa Bay plays the Panthers this week. So I look at a guy like Jalen McMillan and I say, okay, if Jalen McMillan goes off against the Panthers, he gets the Panthers again in championship week. So little things like that can be used to your advantage, and we've used it in the past. You know what? While we're on it, I'm just going to wrap the wide receivers quick. I'm looking at Nick Westbrook-Akine. Noah Brown is a guy that we do like, and again, he went off, got a bunch of targets this week as the top ads. Demario Douglas is always a PPR scam start, right? In full PPR, I go with him. If it's standard, go with Nick Westbrook-Akine. Guys like Thielen and Xavier Legette, those guys are going to be essentially full-time guys for Bryce Young, who's actually looked a little bit better. I mean, they won 2 games, and then they just barely lost to the Chiefs 27-30. Devon Vele is a name you got to keep on your radar because he kind of has emerged as a second target for the Broncos. And then it's guys like MVS and McMillan that you want to kind of stash and look at just for their schedule. So that's kind of what we're looking at. It's a tough spot for wide receiver. And again, this week you don't have to go crazy because there's no bye weeks. Like, are you really going to start some of these guys? Probably not.
So I'm dealing with like a panther here who's just like crawling all over me. Dude, get out of here. Unbelievable.
Run along.
Unbelievable. Such a bully. Yeah. So Panthers wide receivers, can I give you if you're talking waiver wire wide receivers?
You heard us talking Panthers, dude.
What's that?
The cat heard us talking Panthers. What's that?
Cat heard us talking Panthers there and wanted to jump in. I just want to throw a wide receiver out at you here, considering, waiver wire. Keenan Allen.
Ooh. Has he been dropping that far? I didn't see the numbers on him. Is he I know he was kind of hovering around 50%, but I think he might. I think on some of the platforms he has been under 50% roster.
I mean, he's steadily climbed up. I haven't looked. He's probably about at 50% there also, but 29.1% target share since Thomas Brown took over as the offensive coordinator.
Gotta love it.
One of the things, we kind of talked about this with regard to what Brian Callahan was doing with Will Levis in the preseason, and bringing in a guy like Tyler Boyd. You pepper that guy with targets and you help build up the efficiency, which helps build up the confidence that the player has. And, that was everybody's big complaint about Caleb Williams was, his lack of efficiency. And, Thomas Brown, since taking over as the offensive coordinator, has been like, dude, lean on this guy. A 29.1% target share for the rest of the team. Odunze at 25.3, DJ Moore down at 17.7, and then Cole Kmet at 16.5.
Right. And they're gonna have to pass because that schedule for them, it's all either just straight up tough defenses or teams with good offenses or pass funnel. It's Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle. So they're going to be throwing. They have no choice. They have no choice to let it fly. So, yeah, for wide receiver, that's kind of the tough one. Get that one out of the way. There are some options at the other positions, but why don't we check and see what the chat's got popping for us today?
We will. Ethan is our first question over here, but if you look over on the YouTubes here, Joshua K slides in early with a happy Thanksgiving week, soliciting some likes, some subscribes, but then he definitely gets down to business here. Here you go, Coop. For half point PPR, he's got A.J. Brown, Lamb, Flowers at wide receiver, Kamara, Monty, Irving, Dowdle, Brooks at running back, and McBride, Hawk, Disley at tight end.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeesh. Should I drop Brooks and Disley to get Mooney?
Why would he have to drop both? Is it a trade?
I don't really know why he would have.
So he actually.
Oh, because Brooks is on IR. He's got to move Brooks.
Spot.
He's got to move Brooks to IR. So do you move Brooks to IR? Brooks who got 2 carries, and you drop Disley because he's got McBride and he's never going to play Disley to get Darnell Mooney, Brown, Lamb, Flower. I actually think that I would definitely make this move.
I think I would too, because you're going to start Trey McBride. Trey McBride already had his bye week, so you're just going to start him the rest of the way
every week. Yeah,
right. And yeah, Brooks. 55 snaps for Chuba, 5 for Brooks. Chuba played classic. Brooks coming back, and then the Chuba played more snaps than he's ever played. Just so everybody knows what's going on, more than he's ever played. That was a disappointment for me. I had so many bye weeks, and I had some disaster lineups. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start Jonathan Brooks. Yeah, that was a 0 for me. I got Jonathan Brooks let me down. Marvin Harrison Jr. let me down. Dallas Goedert. I don't even have Dallas Goedert in any leagues, but I figured he would do something. We were betting on him. It's like he somehow let me down, even though I don't even have him. Classic Dallas Goedert too.
Well, we were kind of hyping him throughout the week.
Well, conditions were perfect.
Conditions were absolutely optimal right there. Again, one of those things that we talk about, a defense getting better in the sense that Tre'Davious White, you see what his snap count was when he didn't play the first game that he was acquired. Then he had a limited snap count in the second game. And now here all of a sudden an increased snap count again. Again, it frees up Kyle Hamilton to do things like work over the tight end a little bit more.
Yeah.
In that scheme. So, again, conditions were optimal. What are you going to do? Win some, lose some. Dude, come on. Conditions were optimal for Kareem Hunt to go bananas.
Yeah.
Bananas. Now, 9.4 fantasy points. It wasn't the 3.26 that I was complaining about, earlier in the week.
Wasn't the 12.
Wasn't the 12.
I know. It's just crazy because, no Pacheco. But the thing is, you can't even blame yourself for those ones because you have to start that guy.
Yeah.
Right? Against the Panthers, you have to.
You have to. Anyway, so yeah, Josh, I think you make this move here for sure. it shores up your wide receiver situation because I don't know what to expect from CeeDee Lamb. And, Flowers can have great games. He can also have okay games, At least with Mooney, you know what you're getting from him, all the time. Well, as long as he's healthy. That's the other thing we got to watch out with Mooney, and we're checking his practice schedule.
The hamstring, yeah. I mean, he's coming off the bye. The assumption always in everyone's mind is that, they just get a week off, so then that's just a magic hamstring fixing machine. So we'll have to see. But
because it was more than that too. Like he left the week before with an Achilles issue.
Yeah.
Then he left the week after with a hamstring problem. That is all like right there on the back of your leg.
Yeah.
Of what we got going on.
We'll see. But I mean, if he's playing though, he's a better option than like everybody else on the wire. No question.
Oh yeah, definitely a better option.
So it's like when you have a team loaded up like that, all that matters is upside. So I say go for it.
Yeah. Let's see. He also asked, should he keep the Texans defense or should he put in a waiver claim to get Dallas or the Jets? I'm just keeping Houston. Houston's in a great matchup this week again.
Yeah, it's Jacksonville. I think he's worried about week 14, but I mean, the Jets are fine. They're in my streaming article because they have who they have this week. They have Seattle this week. Maybe he's talking about for the following week.
I don't know.
No, go with Houston. Houston's been great against the run at the very
Houston's
least.
Been fantastic right now. So Houston's got Jacksonville. What, week 14? Are they on a bye?
They are, yeah. That's probably why.
I mean,
figure it out as you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's why they call it streaming.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it for the questions over on the extra questions that we got. Oh no, Eric was in here, jumped in with a waiver question. He's been rostering 3 QBs in a 1 QB league. Purdy hit the wire late last week. Should I try to add him and drop him? He's got A-Rich, May, and Tua. Just stay with what you got, dude. You don't need to add Brock Purdy and a bum shoulder,
right?
For any of those guys. Exactly.
You have the safe guy in Tua, and then you have 2 mobile upside guys in, those 2 players. If guys like Purdy are hitting the wire, there's probably all sorts of boring options like Purdy on the wire.
Yeah. All right. Now we got questions here. Ethan Batterman, we can jump in here. Currently rostering Broncos and Bucks D. Do I drop one of them for the Colts or the Cowboys D for this week?
Yeah, so those were my 2 defenses in the streamers article. Who do Bucks have? The Bucks this week get
the Bucks are playing
Carolina.
Not the Raiders. The Raiders are in week 14 for the Bucks.
The Bucks are playing the Panthers.
Panthers, yeah.
Yeah, I would just start the Bucks, D. Yeah, I mean, the Panthers have been a little bit better, but I would stick with it for this week.
Ethan's also got Disley and Pitts in half-point PPR. Is it worth grabbing Noah Gray and hoping the TD binge continues?
Nah, you can't just chase touchdowns like that. I mean, the thing about them is that it's not like they're going full Goddard and Ertz from like 2019, 2020, where both guys are playing 100% of the snaps. Noah Gray still plays 60% of the snaps. He still blocks on a big chunk of pass plays. It's just teams aren't respecting him. And that's what they're doing. They're just saying, hey, if you're not going to cover this guy with a real player, we're just going to throw him the ball until you do. And I think teams are going to start doing
that. Agreed. All right. Let's say hi to Brian Bernard is in here. What's up, man?
What up?
2 Socks is in there. Morning. Fatty McFat. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're not talking to Fatty McFats now. What do we got here from Lou Brew? Abdullah saved me. Thanks to Mill, Coop, and Howard. I was listening on Friday and still, yep, there you go. The Amir Abdullah call. We had a couple of, like we could sit here and we can lament over the Goddards, but I mean, we made some decent calls here for this week, didn't we?
We were pretty good, man. I mean, Amir Abdullah played 69 snaps, nearly 70 snaps. So can't complain about that. I mean, and then Jalen Waddle. You were in on Jalen Waddle against your wishes, but a good situation when you see one, and he popped off this week. Tyreek Hill, did you see the tweet from him? Somebody tweeted
and it's all H-N and
yeah, so squeaky wheel game probably coming for him. But Christian is like, the thing about some of these things, folks have to realize that with the Christian Gonzalez's and the Patrick Surtains and the Sauce Gardners and these guys, it's not always just about that one-on-one matchup. It's about, do they have anything else, right? Because like Terry McLaurin, they don't have much else. So they had to keep going to Terry McLaurin despite Deron Bland because, the rest of the guys are just okay, right? When you have Jalen Waddle and Jonnu and these guys, or like always happens to Mike Evans, the problem for Mike Evans is that when Chris Godwin's healthy and Kate Otten are healthy and Mike Evans has a tough matchup, they don't force it to Mike Evans because they don't have to. So with some of these teams, you have to be wary of the other options available. That was the situation with Tyreek this week. Also, Trey McBride was my top pick for tight end in DFS, and he got 15 targets, so that's pretty good. I also said he was going to be my hot to go player. I wonder if anybody else beat me out, but I think Shan had Saquon maybe. So
no, I don't think she had Saquon. No, she definitely didn't have Saquon.
I know Jefferson. Did she have Jefferson?
Yeah, she had Jefferson.
He had a brutal week.
Dude, right? All right. So for the soul crushing interview with Jordan Addison, I don't know if you listened to Jukebox Monday yesterday, but I was like, so we asked Jordan Addison what his walk up music, what music gets him hyped for a game, and he was like, I don't know, what's yours? And Coop said, I don't really know. Howard, what's yours? And, whatever. And then so I dedicated, it was a Jukebox Monday, hard to handle, the Otis Redding version I played, right? Actions speak louder than words, and I'm a man of great experience.
Right. Man of few words, a man of many yards, George Natter.
Few words, many yards.
He was saving all his energy for the weekend. That's why.
It was unreal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, so moving through the chat here, yes, stuffing not being in the first round is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's the best.
There are plenty of comments here. I appreciate.
Was there a rule that as part of the draft that gravy was implied? Like so?
No, I was asking that. I was like, because I was like, is cranberry sauce a side or is it a condiment? Like, where are we at?
Right.
And I got the ruling that it was a side. Okay. So.
But the gravy's obviously implied for some of the stuff because it's like mashed potatoes with no gravy loses a full round of value.
Yeah, well, I mean, who doesn't put like gravy on their stuffing?
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, okay. Enough about that draft. That's the last thing about the draft, everybody.
That okay? Here we go. Then fine. Let's just go to Charlene. What's up, Charlene? What are your thoughts on starting Leggett over Debo with Purdy out? That's the whole.
It's that one might be a little too strong for me. The thing with Debo is that he's one of those diva-esque guys where now this stuff is getting out with him, like, kind of pushing the long snapper and the comments he made this week. I think this could end up being a get right game for a player like that. Whereas like with Xavier Leggett, if he were out there getting consistent targets, then maybe we consider it. I know the snaps have been good, but he really has had some bad weeks. He's had weeks with zero catches. He's had he's had a week with 0 points. He's also had multiple weeks with 2 points. That does scare me a little bit. Like, so if you have anybody that's like been consistent, then you move him over Debo. I mean, like guys like Cortland Sutton that have just been crushing. Like, I'm going to move a lot of those guys ahead of him, but I can't go that far. I can't go into the wide receiver 4 range because that means that's implying that I don't have Debo ranked in my top like 40 guys. There's no bye weeks this week, Charlie.
There are no buys. Ertz or Engram from DM7819. And this can kind of weave us into tight end waiver wire for tonight also. So, first and foremost, Ertz versus Engram. I guess you got to assume Trevor Lawrence is going to be back. I know he was supposed to be back at practice on Monday. I don't know if he actually put in a full practice or if he was limited. Even if he's not, where do you draw the line on using one guy versus the other? For me, like I almost always start with targets, right? Mm-hmm. I start with targets and like I say, okay, who can get me 7, 8, 9 targets this week? And that's my top tier. And then from there, we move down and we say, okay, who's going to get 5 or 6? Is one of these guys like a freak athlete? Is one of these guys a George Kittle? We move those guys to the top, right? Does one of these guys have a tremendous matchup? We move those guys up, right? But it starts with targets, and Ingram's gotten 8 targets, 7 targets with Mac Jones. I just have to chase those targets. I know Ertz has been good, but Ertz offers nothing in the yak department. He's a 0. So it's still Engram for me. It'd still be Engram for me over guys like Hunter Henry, who I love, even if it's Mac Jones. And if it's Trevor Lawrence, then it's just back to being wheels up because no Christian Kirk, there's no Gabe Davis. Those guys are done for the season, not walking through that door. So
I think Ingram, honestly, the places where I have Ingram, he's just locked in. I don't care who the quarterback is.
All right, so let's talk about some available guys that we're looking at for this week on the waiver wire. I'm sure that there are, a couple of intriguing names, and then I'm sure that there is a dirty, disgusting dart throw that you're probably going to absolutely hate, but yet I'm going to mention it anyway.
As
Go
always,
ahead.
as always. So you have to look around in the shallower leagues. All the names we've been mentioning all year are finally rostered, Howard. So like we don't have to beat everybody over the head with Hunter Henry anymore or Jonnu Smith. Like they've finally been picked up. If they have not been picked up, you need to get Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, and I have Jonnu over Hunter Henry for the simple fact that Hunter Henry doesn't have a game next week. Jonnu's been great. So like it's Jonnu, it's Hunter Henry. And then there's Ertz and Will Disley. Again, Ertz does not have a game in week 14. Disley does. So, but those guys need to be rostered first. After that, it gets kind of thin. But guys like Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson's been playing through a back injury, but he's getting the snaps. He's getting the targets. He's no longer blocking on a bunch of pass plays, and he's got a decent matchup on Thanksgiving. Chigakonkwo has, he bailed himself out with a big touchdown at the end of the game. Went 50 minutes without touching the ball, and then all of a sudden, good week, right? But that's what he does. I mean, he's the only three guys have had 3 or more 40-plus yard plays over the past half decade at tight end. It's Kittle, it's Pitts, and it's Chigakonkwo. Like he can break them off, and he has a great schedule down the stretch. Jacksonville twice, right? Colts. It's obviously an easy one for streamers. It's Theo. You might have to hold your nose with Noah Gray. I mean, you can't argue with the fact that he might not score 2 touchdowns like he has the past 2 weeks, but he could score 1. And then the one I really don't like that we figured might be out there was it the Tommy Tremble was what? Yeah, I know.
100% the Tommy Tremble.
I don't like. Tommy Tremble is fine. There's nothing I don't like about the guy. He seems like a good dude, and he does get carries every once in a while, but he's more of like a hybrid fullback to me. But Ian Thomas is on IR, and Jatavian Sanders landed on his head this week and had to go to the hospital. And the reports are good so far, but I have a hard time believing that he will go to the hospital and then he'll play. I mean, I've seen Deebo Samuel do it. I've seen Tyler Lockett do it, but it's very rare. So Tommy Tremble might be the only show in town besides Felipe Franks. I'm hoping they sign Greg Dulcich, honestly. And that brings me to the
don't put that on. No. I mean, like, give us Tommy Tremble here against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers,
it's a good matchup.
They're terrible against the tight end. What are they? They're giving it's like bottom 5 in fantasy points allowed to the position.
It's the worst. It's one of the worst.
We've been targeting against Tampa Bay with tight ends, and now all of a sudden, now you're going to put Greg. Why would you put all right? Listen, I get it. Like, we wanted sweet baby Greg Dulcich to be something in Denver, right? Play that Joker role. And then he dropped as many passes as were as were thrown at him, and ended up in the doghouse and on the bench. Why would you take away the possibility of like a seriously like close to min price Tommy Tremble against the Bucs and put your Greg Dulcich smear on that?
I mean, for the rest of the season, like if I like Jatavian Sanders as a stash still
this week.
This week it's Tremble. I was transitioning into the stashes is what I was doing. So yes, Tremble will be in the DFS article as an option. The stashes, Jatavian Sanders, like before he got hurt, he was featured. He got 3 targets, caught all 3 of them, and then he got hurt. So they were liking him. And then Greg Dulcich, you never know. Because you look at a guy like Sean Payton, he's a very stubborn guy, right? He shipped away Russell Wilson, who is now leading a team to the playoffs. He shipped away Jerry Jeudy, who has in the last 4 straight weeks been good. And last week he was like wide receiver like 4 overall or 1 overall or whatever it was. And then he shipped off Brandon McManus, and Brandon McManus is now the starting kicker for the Packers. So like he puts guys in the doghouse and he sends them away, and other teams potentially give him a shot. So keep an eye out for Dulcich again. He would have to pick up a playbook in short order, but he's a pass catching tight end. So there you go.
No, he's a pass dropping tight end.
I mean, dude, so there are a lot of players that have a lot of drops. You know who dropped a lot of passes?
I drank your Kool-Aid on Dulcich.
You know who had a lot of drops? Evan Ingram had a lot of drops.
He did have a lot of drops.
And now he's a star.
Is he?
Because he got away from a bad organization. He is.
2 Socks trying to squeeze in a little start sit here early on. Knicks or Baker.
2 Socks. 2 Socks is always hanging out, so he can sneak one in.
I mean, listen, Baker against Carolina. I mean, it seems like a relative no-brainer. Yeah. Bo Nix going up against Cleveland. The issue that I like having Bo Nix in there with the mobility. Like, I'm going to lean Baker here. I like Nix with the mobility because once Myles Garrett gets into the backfield, Nix will probably take off. You'll probably get good rushing yardage out of Nix this week, but it is still a pretty tight secondary, and it is still, outside of Cortland Sutton, a pretty inexperienced receiving core.
Right. Outside of Saquon Barkley, Baker Mayfield might be the funnest player to watch right now in all of football. Like, he's just having a good time out there. He's going wild. He's throwing up the Tommy DeVitos.
Which, again, you didn't hear the show. I had to blast the Godfather theme, leave the gun, take the cannoli. Because what is Baker doing? Like, you want to say Tom Brady's no fun and everybody's having a bunch of fun in the locker room right now? You want to go after Tom Brady like that? Go ahead, try it out. But why are you picking on like my little brother's nephew's cousin's baby, down there? Tommy DeVito's so far down.
He can't.
Why are you trolling somebody so much, so far beneath you?
It's so funny because in the post game, he tried to say like, oh, I met him this offseason and it was a tribute to him. But then you go back and watch the clip and it does not feel like a tribute. It does not feel like a tribute.
It was like an Italian shake weight. That's what it was.
It was really aggressive. But he said it's a tribute, so I don't know. Either way, I mean, like, just the entire play was electric. Just scrambling and trying to go helicopter into the end zone. So I think I just start Baker against the Panthers. Panthers are actually now all of a sudden one of my favorite teams to start guys against because the offense is keeping up a little bit, just a little bit. That's all you need is them to push back just enough for you to have to keep putting points on the board.
Thoughts on Jacoby without Minshew? Just announced earlier today, Aiden O'Connell going to be activated off of IR and will be the starting quarterback. I'll say this. I like Myers more with Aiden O'Connell than I do with Desmond Ridder.
No doubt.
But it's still not great.
No, it's not great. But I mean, it's not like we're going from Jordan Love to Malik Willis here. Like, Minshew wasn't that good either. So it's really, I'm not going to really move those guys around all that much.
All right. Any news on Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I looked for information on that, but news doesn't really trickle out during the bye week because they're not required to give us the information. So I couldn't find much on them, unfortunately. Unless sometimes they'll give it to us voluntarily, but they don't have to do any sort of practice reports, so we don't get anything.
Lubru throwing in a little start set question. Look at that. Like, is that not just Garrett Wilson coming off a bye? Jalen Waddle or Jordan Addison?
It's illegal. It's illegal for you to ask me that, and it's a standard league too, which is
horrible.
Okay.
I'm going to lean. I think I'm going to lean Addison on this. No, I'm going to lean Wilson on this.
Why Howard? I know it's early to like kind of get into this kind of stuff, but why do you think the over under is so low for that Seahawks Jets game?
I don't know. Is there a bomb cyclone or an atmospheric river about to drop down on New Jersey?
Could be
for that game.
41. I mean, those teams. I don't know. I think it's probably still Garrett Wilson, though. I don't know. I can't go Addison. The thing about Addison is another one of those situations, right? It's like Justin Jefferson, just like Waddle last week. Justin Jefferson had the bad matchup, and they just said, okay, we'll throw it to Hawk and Waddle. Just like they did with we'll throw it to Hawk and Addison. The thing with Waddle is, with Green Bay, if Jair Alexander goes, do we get another Waddle-Jonnu game?
No.
Jair Alexander's not going to play, actually, probably.
Jair Alexander's not going to play. He's missed this past week. So, no, I don't think that was the whole thing, is that when you looked at what this matchup was for Miami and where Christian Gonzalez was likely to spend the majority of his time, if Jair Alexander were playing, then I would say, oh, yeah, you know what? We should look at Waddle. But he's not, and
Tell you what, Lou. This is why we usually don't do start sits on this one. I know we have games coming up on Thursday. After this show, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to rank 70 wide receivers. and then I'm going to do the same for every position, and then I'm going to go see Gladiator 2 with my friends.
Oh.
So this time tomorrow, I'm going to have every single one of those players ranked for the show, Lou. So pop back in, and I'll give you a definitive answer tomorrow.
Here's a deep waiver one here. Thoughts on Hollywood Brown being able to contribute weeks 15 through 17?
No. Hollywood Brown is like...
No, you gave your answer. That was it. Hal asks in a 12. It's rapid fire, Coop.
Okay.
The no is fine. In a 12-team PPR, start 2 wide receivers and a flex. He's got McLaurin. Why are we getting all these start sits here on a Tuesday?
And Hal should know better.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just getting rid of that one there.
Text me, Hal.
Text him. Come on. Add stash backs like Corum, Vidal, Gus.
Yes,
always.
But not
if you have the room.
Probably not Vidal. I mean, I've been looking for info on J.K. Dobbins with the knee. The Twitter doctor group seem to be in consensus that with their ocular pat down of this injury that it's probably just an MCL. Might even be able to play with a brace. So, but you know how that goes, Howard. We'll wait for the MRI, but I always check in. Edwin Porras does really good. A lot of those guys do good jobs, so I don't like to bash it, but it's so hard to diagnose an injury, from your TV.
McNichols. That's all it says, and and that's actually a good point here because you're looking at
kind of a good point.
You're looking at Brian Robinson, who went down with an ankle issue. He tried to come back, but then he was just lost for the rest of the game. And Austin Eckler, yet another concussion. So
right.
Eckler's not coming back for this week. Brian Robinson, it's kind of touch and go right now. I mean, you would think in a game that was like going up against Dallas and a rival that if he was able to play on it, then he would have played on it, right? You shoot him up for the game and just let him go out there. If you're not concerned about like ligaments, structural.
Right. He tried. Yeah. He tried to come back and they were like, and they immediately took him back out. And Austin Eckler went to the hospital. So, we're hoping he's all right, but that doesn't lead me to believe he's going to be cleared. Right. So for me, I'm looking at McNichols as a spot start for this week. We're looking at Gus Edwards for sure if J.K. Dobbins is out. Right. Amir Abdullah, you got to keep an eye on the Zamir White and Madison. But if they're not practicing tomorrow, right, because that game's Friday now, right? Yeah. So if they're not practicing, tomorrow is now essentially the practice for those guys, right? Because Thursday is going to be a walkthrough and Friday itself is travel and play day. So if those guys aren't playing tomorrow, then I'm leaning Abdullah. Streaming wise, another guy that might be the best long-term out of all. Obviously, Gus is if JK's out, right? But a guy you should keep in mind is also Tank Bigsby. He's one of the few guys that's been kind of leading his team in carries, and he's been the most efficient guy on the team. And with Trevor Lawrence coming back, he might be a spot start if he's good to go or down the stretch here. So keep him in mind. Tyler Algier is always on the radar, and he has a decent matchup for Week 14 when everybody has bad matchups. Week 14 as well. Jaylen Warren probably is the guy that might be available that has the best matchup for first Cleveland. Week 14 is going to be really tough, Howard. I went through, and there's not a lot of the teams that we like to start guys against are on bye, like the Patriots, for instance, right? Washington. So those teams aren't available. And a lot of the teams we like to stream guys from, those teams are on bye. And then the rest of the guys kind of have bad matchups. So you're looking at like a Warren versus Cleveland in deep situations, maybe a Singletary versus the Saints matchup wise, but like there's not a lot of great streaming options. So this is the week to kind of sneak the Gusses and the Bigsbys onto your team. And then for stashes, we haven't not much has changed. Check out the stash article over there. I don't want to go through them all again. We've been talking about it for a while now. Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Jalen Wright. Think about what happens if the starter goes down on some of these teams that are actually running the ball well or have really good schedules. That's all it is. Keaton Mitchell. Who needs to be mentioned is Kenneth Gainwell, because he has actually looked all right. Like when he gets in there, he looks good. Barkley looks so good that we kind of forget that Kenneth Gainwell scored a few touchdowns here, and he's kind of elusive. So if something happens to Barkley, he's got to go in there.
Did you drop Sean Tucker's name in that conversation?
I did not sneak Tucker's name in there. He did score a touchdown this week, but
Oh, dude,
again,
that was a disaster for me. Like I'm a big Bucky Irving guy.
mhm.
On I played Bucky in DFS in my primary GPP lineup on FanDuel, and I had Bucky in there as my flex guy. So to see Liam Cohen during the week was like, yeah, I think we should get Sean Tucker some touches, right? Like he said it again. That was like, okay, that's a little on the unnerving side. But to watch Rashad White and Bucky Irving march down the field the way they did, and then hand it to Tucker at the 1, and then to come back and do it a second time, right? I mean, that was like that. Like they did it the second time, and Tucker fumbled at the goal line, and like literally Todd Bowles, like you just know that he, somewhere went up to Liam Cohen and like just grabbed him and shook him, being like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you playing this gimmick here at the goal line? Look, it just cost us, a touchdown."
Right. Bucky could have been the RB2 on the week behind. Well, Saquon had the craziest game ever, but like Bucky could have had a better game than Josh Jacobs because like Bucky had 150 yards and a touchdown already, right? Yeah. And the great thing about Bucky, and folks, again, if you're in really shallow leagues, definitely make sure he's not available. We knew he was the best pass catching back coming out in this class. That was the crazy thing, is that he was supposed to be the pass catching guy from this whole class, because he led everybody in receptions last year. And then they switched it, made him the early down back, and they made Rashad White the passing back. This week they said, hey, let's throw this guy the ball because he's caught everything. He has caught every pass thrown at him. Every pass thrown at him since September, he has caught. Yeah. Weeks was 7 of 7. And this week he catches 6 of 6. Like, this guy has sure hands. He's only dropped. There's only been 2 passes, not even dropped, just 2 passes, 2 targets he hasn't caught all year. Dude, Bucky Irving could be the real deal. Dino trade time, I think.
All right, so we hit running backs here for the waiver wire. We've hit wide receivers. We hit tight ends. Let's talk some QBs for a sec here, and then we'll get back to the chat, because chat's now loaded up with just start sits. People are so impatient with your start sits, but all right, we'll indulge. We'll talk some quarterbacks in the waiver wire, then we'll indulge some of these start sits on a Tuesday.
Blasphemy. That's like picking brisket in a Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started. Oh, by the way, before we get to quarterbacks, I just got to give a little shout out here to Prater in the ball game. KTIK's finest in Boise, Idaho. I lost a bet with him, and part of my paying up the bet is that I have to wear a Prater in the ball game t-shirt for like, I think next 2 or 3 live streams that we do. So if you guys see me in the same shirt, just know that I like wore it for this show, and I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to put it back on for tomorrow's show. Not that I sleep in my same clothes for, multiple days straight.
I do the same thing, dude.
Which I do.
I do the same thing for shows, though. Sometimes I'll do a show. Like I did this on Friday. It might have been, I put a shirt on, and then I was like rocking it for the show. And then I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I want to wear this on Saturday. So I took it off so it wouldn't get all dirty, and then wore it to a party on Saturday. It's like, you guys don't know what we go through here with the wardrobe stuff. Anyway,
we do our own wardrobe. That's a problem. Makeup and wardrobe, we handle that.
We need somebody to help us with that. Yeah. These guys are struggling. So I'm trying to get them a boost. I'm trying to get them a little boost.
Now talk quarterbacks.
All right. So honestly, when I went through this week, because of no teams being on bye week, I didn't do much for you in terms of streamers. If you're in a crazy deep league where, you might need to look at like a Bryce Young versus Tampa Bay, then go ahead. Like I know there are some leagues out there where it's like everybody rosters 2 or 3 quarterbacks, then maybe go for a Bryce Young against Tampa Bay. But for the most part, your guy is available. Whoever you've been trusting is available. So for me, I'm looking at week 14, and I'm looking at stashes down the stretch. And those 2 guys are still Drake May. If he can, he's got a bye week 14, but if down the stretch, if he really picks it up and starts running, that's a guy you might use. And Will Levis is still number 1. I mean, like he's been playing a lot better. He's been letting it fly. Sure, he makes bad plays, but he also makes incredible plays. Like this guy is Jay Cutler 2.0. Like, and the thing for fantasy is I don't care about the bad plays. You throw a pick 6, you get the ball right back. You know what I mean? Like Jameis Winston, the year he threw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks, was a great quarterback for fantasy. I do not care about the picks and all that. So like Will Levis, not only is he letting it fly, he's had some good stats, but he gets we said it a million times. Jags twice, Colts. His schedule is great. Bengals. So from week 14 on, and this week, he gets Washington if you need him, but that's the way it goes. He's the best stash. In the even crazy deeper leagues, you got to look at Drew Lock in the event that Tommy DeVito goes out and plays the same way. They got to give this guy a look. Trey
I don't
Lance.
even know if Tommy's playing on Thursday. Tommy was kind of banged up coming out of the game. This past week, they didn't specify like a specific injury, but they were like, it's more than just general soreness.
He's not any good, dude.
He's not any good.
I don't know what they're doing.
It's a money thing. That's all it is a money thing. So
it makes me mad. Over $250,000, which is a lot to me, but to a team, to the Rooney's,
are you sure it's not more than that?
So that was the 40% of the rest. I mean, it could add up to more. It could add up to up to $1 million. But the big thing was if he had started the rest of the games, if he started the last 7 games, it would have guaranteed he played at least 40% of the snaps on the season, and he would have got an extra $250,000. So that's definitely part of it. I mean, they're doing it with Daniel Jones too. The reason they let him go is because his money, or they had to bench him, is if he got hurt, his money was all guaranteed. But anyway, Drew Lock, he should get a chance to play. Trey Lance, of course. And then, in those deeper super flex leagues, you have to look and say, like, who's a mobile quarterback if the starter gets hurt? Justin Fields, for instance, right? So just keep those guys in mind. But I guess Daniel Jones, you could stash him in case like he completely does a 180 and goes to a team like the Raiders, but he says he wants to play for a competitive team. So that's about it for quarterback. Will Levis is the guy. That's the guy.
If somebody dropped Trevor Lawrence in your league, would you consider Trevor Lawrence? Obviously, it's 2 games against the Titans. He's got the Jets. He's got the Raiders. He's got Houston coming up this week if he plays. Would you give him a look-see?
Yes. So I mentioned that in the main waiver article, the free one. I mentioned if you want to play the injured guy, maybe coming back game, there's 2 options, Trevor Lawrence and Derek Carr. The difference is that Derek Carr has to deal with Taysom Hill. Right. And now also, as you've been pointing out, Howard, Russell Wilson kind of needs to deal with Justin Fields getting these packages. That's bad. Having your quarterback coming out at the 5-yard line is bad. I don't know how else to tell you. That is not good for fantasy football. So of that crew, of the Wilson, Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence crew, it is Trevor Lawrence. It's just his weapons are falling apart. It's just Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram. And Tim Jones.
Definitely go check out all the packages that we've got over at fantasyalarm.com with Coop's waiver wire, must-adds, stashes, streamers, as well.
And we have a great deal. We have a great deal right now going on.
We got a nuts deal right now here. So we are.
We got to bring up the big one. We got to bring the big one up because of look how clean that looks. John did such a good job with that.
Okay, listen, John and Pemba does an amazing job with our. That's graphics.
Classy.
So here you go, folks. We're not doing Black Friday just on Friday. All right, we're just making it all week long here. So if you go, click this QR code. Right? Or just go to fantasyalarm.com/Black Friday. We're running it this entire week now. Why are you making me so small over here?
I was trying to make it the full screen because it's so good.
making me so small.
That was weird that came up like that. I like that.
fantasyalarm.com/Black Friday, promo code BF24 takes $100 right off of that annual subscription. It means that your monthly cost for Fantasy Alarm is less than $16. Less than $16, and that's every sport. That's all of our draft guides. That's all of our cheat sheets. That's season long. That's DFS. That's betting. Everything you could possibly want. It's the Discord. It's the access to me, to Coop, to John, to James Grande, like the whole team over there. Dan Malin, all of that, less than $16 a month. We're doing this all week long here. You want to get in on it. I mean, do it right now, and you get the rest of this football season. You get all of our baseball stuff that's coming out, and you're also getting next season's football, NFL draft guide and cheat sheets and everything like that.
And the NBA rankings and the hockey rankings.
Dude, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Tap that QR code. or go to fantasyalarm.com/Black Friday.
Now's the time. And a little spoiler alert. If you do sign up for the first time now, odds are pretty good that we're going to have some sort of Black Friday deal again next year. And then you could just re-up again and be on the Black Friday crib. So there you go.
Right, exactly. Like you're just timing it absolutely perfectly to constantly get that same deal.
I have people that DM me and they say, "Hey, you doing the Black Friday thing again?" And I say, "I don't know, but yes." And then they get signed up again once the time comes around. So get in on that. Now's the time.
All right. Let's get to some, we'll rapid fire a couple of questions here, a couple of start sits just for shits and giggles here. FFPC playoff semis, Hunter Henry or Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, I mean, for next week, it's going to be Hunter Henry against the Colts. I mean, why wouldn't it be? He's been outside of the one game that was a down game in general for the entire Patriots team. He's been getting peppered up.
JSN, Shakir, Hunt, or Rashad White in full point PPR already starting DK. Well, if you're already starting DK, then you don't want to start JSN. You are going up against the Jets in their secondary. I mean, Rashad White going up against Carolina.
Yeah, but Kareem Hunt
going up against the Raiders.
Kareem Hunt, would he let us down back to back like
2 weeks in a row in his potential last hurrah?
He would never.
I'll see. Well, you know what? This is the week. This is the game where I'll legitimately say, see if Isaiah Pacheco is active, because you can,
right.
You don't have to deal with JSN or Shakir. It's either Hunt or White. And if it's not Hunt for Friday's game because Pacheco is playing, even in a limited snap count, even if they say Pacheco's limited, I'm still going to pivot off of Hunt because you just never know.
Right.
And then I go to Rashad White going up against Carolina.
Yeah, it could be. You never know, because, it could be like with Jordan Mason, our thoughts were like, well, he'll probably still play a little. He did not. He was dead. He was done.
Ingram or Laporta?
I don't know how anybody in their right mind could start Laporta right now. He's dead. He's not been healthy the entire season. They don't need him. They don't need to lean on him.
Pitts or Disley? Half point.
I'm going Pitts. Disley has been good, but you got to give yourself a chance at upside.
Does he roll the dice with the Cowboys defense this week or stick with the Chargers?
Let's take a little gander. The Chargers get the Falcons, which the Chargers are a good defense, but it's not a great matchup. The Cowboys have a good matchup against the Giants. I mean, I'm just rolling the Cowboys out. The Cowboys got Micah Parsons back, too. Micah Parsons was everywhere this week, right?
They got Deron Bland back also in the secondary.
Right. Yeah, they might get Diggs back. You never know. But, I mean, Parsons, 2 sacks, 8 tackles. He was flying around. That might be our Thanksgiving tackle monster. That's a fun one.
Ooh. What tight end might be available to have good matchups in week 14 to cover Hunter Henry?
A good tight end with good matchups, sir, in this economy? I would first check. So Ertz is also going to be on bye week. I would first check with Jonnu or Will Disley. They're probably rostered, but if they're not, that's where I would go. Otherwise, you got to start looking at guys like maybe Jake Ferguson got dropped. He's playing the Bengals. That's pretty good. Otherwise,
if Goddard gets dropped, he'll have Carolina.
Goddard gets dropped. I mean, Tommy Tremble would be. We talked about it. I mean, it's kind of gross, but he's getting the good matchup against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And then if everybody's rostered, then you just go with the athleticism of Chig Okonkwo, and he's got a good matchup against the Jags. Everybody's been torching the Jags, all the tight ends, and you just hope he scores a big one, or just rips off big chunk play.
Like it. Texans or Cowboys defense? Well, we just said. I mean, Texans are going to be on a bye next week. I like the Texans this week, but you could use the Cowboys this week. And who do the Cowboys have in week 14?
Yeah, I'm doing I've ranked the tight ends. I still have to rank all the other positions.
Oh, Dallas has Cincinnati on week 14. No, you don't want that.
No, you don't want that.
I just stay with the Texans then.
Stay with the Texans. The Texans have been good.
Yeah. All right, one more before we get on out of here. Just one more, people. We love you so much, but we can't get to every single question here. But somehow we missed Two Socks' first question. Half-point PPR, start 2. Monty, CMC, Chuba, Tracy, 2 flex, Dell, Downs, McCon. Jeez Louise, look at this. Got London and Evans starting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know what's Montgomery's. Here's the problem, and I'm not even going to put you to an answer on this one, Coop, because we don't know the condition for Montgomery. We don't know if it's going to be Brock Purdy or Brandon Allen, quarterbacking for the San Francisco 49ers.
Too many moving parts for that right now.
Yeah,
let's do Charlene's as the last question because that's actually a waiver question, Howard.
Go ahead, pull that up.
Okay. Worth picking up McNichols when Robinson and Eckler questionable, and you have Mac Jones to drop. Yeah, you could drop Mac Jones out of drop Mac Jones into a black hole somewhere. In what world are you going to start Mac Jones, Charlie?
No world.
All right, that'll do it.
That is going to do it. We thank everybody, as always, for tuning in. Once again, fantasyalarm.com/Black Friday, promo code BF24, $100 off of that annual subscription, knocks down to less than $16 a month. Coop and I will be back tomorrow, same time. Bust out all of those start sets. So don't you worry about it. We got you 100% covered. And best of luck to you guys the rest of the way. For Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Alarm Fantasy Football.